Hello everyone, welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. Sorry for the weird lighting angle. We are going to talk about my wrap up for August. So I don't know exactly how many books I finished in this last section. I did finish a total of 32 books in August, which I'm very happy about. A lot of them were middle grade or really short books, and so the total number of pages was something like 6,900 pages, which I'm not saying is just a shabby number. It's a very good number, but the total of books to pages doesn't quite equal up to an incredible amount. I am very happy with all of those numbers though, incredibly happy. So I'm disappointed anyway. So let's get into what I read. I did do one reading vlog where I read a good chunk of those books, 8 of those books. So I guess we'll just talk about those first. So one of those books was Charlotte by Helen Moffat. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling all about Charlotte after the events of Pride and Prejudice. So this is going to contain a spoiler warning for Pride and Prejudice. I also want to preface this by saying I love Charlotte as a character. I have always admired her, and I made a full video dedicated to why I love Charlotte like a year ago. So when I heard about this book, I thought this could be an amazing story. I really want to know more. And this book left me very, very disappointed. I am very sad to say that this contained many tropes that make me very unhappy in books. And for some people, this is a great book. However, for me, it just felt very disconnected. But more than that, it contained a lot of the tropes that I really dislike, and I would actually have put it down if it were not for a buddy read. It is not long. It is about 360 pages, but everything in it made me actually not want to pick it back up because I was scared of what I was going to be reading, and everything I feared actually came true. So it is beautifully written. The language, the word choice, everything was really well done. It was just the actual way the story went. And the fact that I love Charlotte so much actually probably deterred my enjoyment level of this. If it had been a story about, I don't know, Kitty Bennett, who I don't have as much connection to, I would have been a lot less hurt. Maybe. I'm not saying anything as like against the author. I think she's an amazing writer in terms of her writing style. But like I said, I'm just so attached to Charlotte as a character that this book took Charlotte in a way that I was not wanting or appreciating in that terms. So unfortunately, this was a 1 star from me, but I do appreciate the writing style, and I think that this might be a book for you. I am going to give a bit of a spoiler here for why I did not like this book as much, because I feel like I can't just say I don't like the content without telling you why. I just feel like that would not be doing the book justice or doing my review justice. So one of my biggest turnoffs in books, and this is my spoiler, is cheating. And I felt like there was a lot of emotional cheating going on in this book, as there was a male character introduced, and Charlotte did a lot of emotional cheating as she invested into an emotional relationship with that male character. So I am going to be unfortunately giving this a 1 star, but I thought the writing was beautiful, but that really just tainted my entire view of the story. I wanted to see a Charlotte and Mr. Collins relationship, and I never saw that in this book, and unfortunately that's why I have to give it a 1. So I'm very sorry. It is beautifully written, like I said, so go check it out if you're all interested. The other 7 books that I finished while camping in that vlog were the 7 Magic Treehouse books. So I'm gonna have to look up the titles for you now. So I read Tonight on the Titanic, Buffaloes Before Breakfast, Tigers at Twilight, Civil War on Sunday, Revolutionary War on Wednesday, Blister on Tuesday, and Earthquake in the Early Morning. So I read all of these and I talked about them a little bit in my wrap up, but I really enjoyed how each of them covered a different aspect of history. The last 4 really cover American history. I really appreciate how they all covered very difficult and heavy topics, in a very delicate way and very approachable way for young readers. So I really enjoyed them all, gave them all 4 stars, and I would highly recommend checking out my camping vlog for all of my thoughts on those, at least the Magic Trios books. I did talk about more books that I was reading, and I also read one more in that vlog. So that one was Lost Hills by Lee Goldberg. I read this one and gave it 5 stars, loved it. It was so fast, fun. It's based in like Hollywood area, but not quite Hollywood, so it's really fun with all of the different nods to it. It was very high action, felt like CSI, and I like had nostalgia to the TV shows I watched growing up, but also in like a really fast action book series. So I loved this. So the first one follows Eve Ronan. She just recently got promoted to the homicide section of this department, sheriff's county that she works in, but she's not really accepted there. She was promoted because she got caught on tape arresting this really big martial arts actor, kind of like Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan. Anyways, she got caught arresting him because she was off duty, but she caught him abusing his girlfriend in this back parking lot, I don't remember if it was a back parking lot, doesn't matter. So she caught him abusing her, and she stepped in, he started hurting her, and so she took him down. It got caught on video and went viral. And because it was such great press for the police, they basically offered her whatever she wanted. So she took a role in the homicide department, and people there don't really appreciate that. It's all like a boys club, and her partner is really helping her out. He has like 3 months left on the job, and he's like, don't mess this up for me. I love their dynamic. He's wise and old, and he's like, I just want to eat donuts. His nickname is Dunkin' Donuts. And she's like, I am young and inexperienced, and I just need help to like solve the little things, but also because she's so young and naive and not hardened to it, she's also really intuitive, and she spots the things that no one else does. So the first book followed her as she came across a scene that she had to solve where there was tons of blood but no bodies, and they are trying to figure out what the case is. It was a real interesting mystery, and it was like 220 pages. I really loved it. And then I was almost done book 2 at my camping trip, so I have that in the vlog as well. I was loving that one. And I finished it September 1st, so you'll see that one in my first September wrap up. Actually, I'm vlogging in September, so you'll see that in my first September vlog. But loved that one too, spoilers. But yes, highly recommend Lost Hills by Lee Goldberg. The Eve Ronan series is definitely a highlight that I've discovered. So technically one that I have read, but I marked on Goodreads and Storygraph, is Bugs at Play by Sue Whitting. This one I'm giving like a 2 or 3 stars. The rhyme is great. It's for like preschoolers, toddlers, but it needs severe editing because it's not well done editing at all. And I liked the idea, but yeah, 6 little bugs, and it's not a good job of editing at all. So just wanted to put that in there. I did read it, and I probably should have saved it for September, but yeah, I wanted to put it in there as at least to mark it as it's not a great children's book. There are better ones to pick up. Next, I picked up Maya and the Rising Dark. This is by Rena Barron. I actually tried this on audio. I didn't have enough time to finish it though, so I got the physical copy. Flew through it. This one is totally Percy Jackson meets African mythology, and I loved it. I learned about African mythology in June for Ancients-a-thon, and it was amazing. I actually learned about a lot of mythology from all over the world, and I really wanted to learn about more mythology, like specifically from different parts of the world, and this one hit the spot. So the sequel's coming out in a couple weeks, and I can't wait to pick it up. But this one follows Maya as her father travels a lot for work, and he is kind of suspicious about it. She doesn't really think it's anything crazy, but he always tells her these stories that seem larger than life. They're always like strange, they can't possibly be true. But then one day she starts seeing these shadows come to life, or these things start happening and they're weird. And suddenly she starts to realize that maybe those stories actually are true. It's just so great, and I loved seeing it. It's about Maya and her discovery that, you know, maybe the other side, those myths actually are possibly true. Maybe her father isn't who he exactly says he is, and maybe she has to help save the day. It is wonderful. I really loved it. It was so wonderful to have a female protagonist in a young, not a young adult, but in a middle grade fantasy. On top of that, like, yes, I said Percy Jackson, but it isn't a ripoff in any way. It is just so much fun, and I highly recommend it. I also talked about that one in one of my videos that I recently put out for my dark titles that I recommend for reading for Buzzwordathon every month. And I also talked about in that video Dark Canyon by Louis L'Amour. And this one I recommend as well. I gave it 4 stars and I enjoyed it. It was my first Western that was purely a Western. And this is what I would call a classic Western, a modern classic from, I think it was from like the 70s. So it's like 40 years old. And it followed Riley Overlord, I think that's name, Gaylord, I can't remember exactly now, but he comes into some money because he used to be part of a outlaw gang, and he is trying to get settled, but it's a very short book, so I don't want to say too much. It has a hint of romance, but it's more about him just trying to settle down and kind of just get established. I really enjoyed it as it was a Western and just purely about outlaws versus the sheriff, the political systems of like a small little town. And I really loved the one line that it had. I remember it saying it was such a small town essentially that it only had 5 saloons. And I was like, that was just such a key line. You know, it had a church, it had all these things, but it's such a small town. Only 5 saloons. But yeah, really great. And I thought it was well worth the read if you are at all interested in that kind of thing. I will be reading another one in the future. I'm sure I'm interested to read more pure Westerns, especially from Louis L'Amour. I am excited to try more of his work. I also read The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. This one is a nonfiction, I'd say high middle grade. And I read this with Danny from Spinelli Speaks. This one was difficult. I have never read this before. Somehow it missed me in my literature-based homeschool curriculum, but I don't know. This one is really hard for me to grade or to rate because it is just, it's all over the place for me because as much as I really admire Anne Frank's writing and I felt like I was in her head so much, it also is difficult because we're only hearing her side of the story, and she is such an incredible person. It was a hard read at times. I'm fully engaged with the content level and style of writing, but at the same time, the content was tricky because, you know, I'm not her level, I'm not her age. I can't fully get engrossed with that whole, oh, do my friends like me? Or I'm stuck inside this house with my mother who hates my guts. And I mean, and now in this time of like post-COVID, or not post-COVID because COVID's still going on, but like, you know, we're in the middle of it, or we're not quarantining anymore, essentially. We can kind of understand how that would have felt, but not to the same extent. And so it's a really hard one to rate, and I fully appreciate the reading of it, and I'm so glad I've read it, and I'm so glad I have the reading experience of it. I feel like if I were just to rate it on my own personal level of intaking it, because I've also heard so many stories now at this time of my life, you know, I've heard so many stories, I've heard so many of my family stories growing up. Like, my family wasn't Jewish, I'm not Jewish, I'm 1/64th Jewish, but I have like my family's Mennonite, so we, my family history went through a lot in World War II because they refused to fight. So I've heard a lot of stories, so this is not like the first time I've ever heard a story, but if this was the first story I've ever heard, I could see how that'd be very powerful and very hard to deal with and hard to read. So I'm trying to rate this on a scale of not my first story, but also I'm not the intended audience necessarily that would be reading this, and if I was, you know, that age range. So my personal level would have been a 3-star because of impact, because that's also how I rate my books, but I'm giving this a 4 for that. And also, the main reason I'm trying to rate that, I'm not rating it a 5, is because I wanted something from Otto Frank. I have, in my copy at least, a section at the very beginning from Eleanor Roosevelt, which I really enjoyed, and there's something at the end which talked about how the war started, how Hitler came to power, and what happened to everyone after the fact, which I also really appreciated. But I wanted something from Otto Frank talking about, you know, the preparations, or talking about after the fact, after the war, how he moved to America, something to tie the book together, because it didn't feel tied together in any way. So that's something that felt missing for me, because it just started and then ended. And that's it. So I wish I had known more from her father, who found these papers or who received them. So that's something I felt was missing from this book. So 4 stars. As an actual rating, although the impact, as I have heard many stories, I mean, this is still a very impactful story with everyone who's living together, and just knowing that the end is going to come was very impactful. It's not the first story I've ever heard. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, 4 stars officially. On a different note, I read Cockroaches by Jo Nesbo. This one I read with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures and Nikki from Red Dot Reads. We read this one all together, and I had actually read The Bat with Berna, but then we read this one with Nikki as well. This is book 2 in the Harry Hole series. So I actually have read The Snowman, which is like farther down the series. I think it's at least 18, or I think it's book 18. I keep saying that, but I might be like totally wrong. But anyways, it's like in the teens section of the series. So I knew that they got gritty. However, The Bat was not. So I was like, I don't know where this one's gonna fall. And this one definitely was more on the gritty side. So I was kind of more expecting or braced for that. But I wasn't braced for how different this was from The Bat. He definitely stepped it up. So this one follows Harry as he's called to Thailand after the ambassador has died in very suspicious circumstances, like he's been murdered. However, when he died, they're kind of like hushing it up, and he doesn't know all the situation. So he's been called there to basically solve this, because he is, you know, he's Norwegian, so he's supposed to be the person to help solve the problem. But there's many things, and one thing that they talk about is how cockroaches, when you see one, there's about 10 that are hiding. So there's a lot more hidden motives going around in this book, which I really enjoyed. I liked trying to look for all the things. I never figured out exactly who did it. Well, none of us did. We were all talking about theories, and we never pinpointed exactly what it was. At one point it was exactly like, there's no way this person did it. And so I was quite wrong. But I also really enjoyed how it showed a bit more depth to Harry, and it showed his methods more. And all the evidence was there, but we never actually were proven to, we never saw it. So I enjoyed this one a lot more, and I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I also really enjoyed how it all came together, and it definitely was gritty. I don't know why, but maybe like Nordic books are just grittier, because every Nordic book I've read that's like been a mystery thriller has been like gritty compared to North American stuff, like horror level gritty. So I don't know, but I'm prepared for it now. So I'm excited to read book 3 with Nikki and Berna soon. I also read I Lost My Talk by Rita Jo. I heard about her through the Finding My Talk book that I read back in July. And this one was a picture book. I am planning on getting the actual physical book to show my library that this book should be kept in print or kept in their system. But I found an e-copy with my library, and I read it that way. And it was very, very good, very powerful, I felt like. And it's just a nonfiction about how she felt going into residential school and the different ways that she felt isolated. And it's very good for children to see and read, just about the different ways of how they felt during that time. So I feel like it's a really important read, very impactful read. And with this book, you'll see a trend with my next few books. I also read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This one I loved. My hold came in from the library and I was very excited for it. This one I really enjoyed, gave it 4 stars. This one was about 2 women, well, actually 3 women, who all are dealing with this medicinal medicine. So Nella is the one in 1700s, the late 1700s, who is running this apothecary shop, and she is giving poisons to women in order to kill men. But the problem comes when she meets Eliza, and Eliza is a 12-year-old who's more interested than not in actually making the poisons. And then they come across a woman who wants to make a poison to kill actually another woman, not a man. That's where things start to go downhill. Then in present day, we see Caroline, who comes across this bottle, and she is trying to figure out what happened with this bottle, how it's connected to the past, and she starts researching it. She comes across this apothecary shop. She starts looking into it, and we see as the reader that this bottle is from the apothecary shop. So she's researching this apothecary shop and trying to figure out what's the connection. And it's such a fascinating story. I really enjoyed the twists and turns and how it showed history and a mystery. And I liked it's all the things that I'm interested in, along with like natural medicines, also women killing and like that part of history that's not really investigated. But poisons, so good. I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. Highly recommend. I also read The Lost Lemon Mine, the Unsolved Story of the Old West, by Ron Stewart. So this one, or Stewart. So this one is a short story, essentially. It's a novella, not really novella because it's nonfiction, about this actual mine, this kind of legend that has taken place in Western history about the gold rush and about these 2 people, Lemon and Old Butler. I can't remember what his name was, the other one, but basically the legend is that Lemon killed his partner at the spot of the mine, and therefore it is kind of like hidden. There are so many players involved, and this little short book covered all the players, all of the different legends surrounding it, and what kind of things happened. It's very interesting. I liked the idea of it. However, it was kind of repetitive. And also, as not a super old book, it didn't always have the best culturally appropriate terms. And I appreciate that when they were quoting old newspapers, that was what to be expected. But the current writing, I did not love. However, I did give it 3 stars because I found the old mystery part to be very interesting. And I think it is interesting and worth a read if you are wanting to. However, you might want to save it for maybe later this winter. Hint for a future video. So the last book that I read for the month was The Album. This is by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. I don't know why I had to look. And I read this one with Kevi. So I did this as a buddy read, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This one was a perfect mystery. This was better than The Window at the White Cat, in my opinion. I loved this one. It was so brilliant. So brilliant. I don't know if it was like more pages or just a more experienced author. I don't know what it was, but this was just better. So this book follows Louisa as she has been living on this cul-de-sac for a very long time with her mother. This has been a very secluded cul-de-sac, and they all are very much like a cult, I would call it. They do all their washing on the same day. They all do the same thing with their hair, their clothes. They are all very much a repeat of each other. However, things start getting a little fishy when Mrs. Lancaster dies. It is very shocking, and the whole cul-de-sac is thrown into an uproar. Everyone is thrown under suspicion, especially Jim. Now, Jim is Mrs. Lancaster's son, I believe. I can't remember the exact relationship. I think he's her son. And he has been thrown under suspicion, but Louisa is trying to help him because they have a previous relationship. However, she is trying to really figure this out, and then the police are asking for, questions, help, information, and no one wants to help them. So Louisa is just hanging out. She's our perspective, she's our narrator, and I thought it was brilliant to have her be the narrator. She has a really interesting perspective to look at the cul-de-sac through. She's by far the youngest member on the cul-de-sac, aside from like the newly married couple that comes in, being Helen and Jim. And it's just so fascinating. You also have other people who are like trying to come in, being Bert, who is the criminal forensics person. However, he is helping the police and he doesn't really know everyone there. You also have some interesting people in the neighborhood, like the servants and the street sweeper. You have a lot of different people who don't live in the big houses like the owners, but they all are present and you don't know who to trust. This book follows so many plots and twists, and not in a bad way. I love this, 5 stars. I feel like if you are not loving The Window at the White Cat, like try the album, because this one was better. This one was way better. Like I gave The Window at the White Cat 4 stars, but this one 5 stars. It was just easier to get into and so much better. And I love this one. So yeah, highly recommend the album. So that is it for this month's wrap up. I am really happy with everything that I read, except for a couple books, but that's okay. I am happy that I have tried and maybe failed at loving everything, but you know what? That's life. Please let me know down below what was some of your favorite books this month. And also please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you are new here. And I will see you next time in another video. Bye for now.